Well, my name is Harriet, and in around 1993 or so, I started having a lot of problems with hip pain and limping, and was eventually diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And since then, I've had a lot of pain, often in my thighs, my one shoulder, my hip, my feet and legs often hurt a lot at night, caused me to have a hard time sleeping. And I've tried different things over the years, medications and acupuncture, and those help some, and then they'd kind of fade off. And my physician had recommended recently, when I was having kind of a flare-up, that I try physical therapy again, and that's how I came to see Ernie.
And so what was bringing on your pain? Do you know?
Well, one thing that always seemed to trigger it was if I was worried about my daughter, which that in particular, like if she were sick and I was worried about her, that's always been a trigger. I worked for many years for the school district, and so beginning of school and end of school, I often had a hard time. So clearly it was related to stress around, I don't like change, so any kind of change has always been hard. So I think that's part of it for me is
so then
stress brought on by that.
Okay, so stress was definitely the thing that brought on all the symptoms you just described?
Usually, yeah. Okay. Or sometimes physical things, like just weird things where I'd sit and be having a perfectly lovely, relaxed, what I thought was relaxed afternoon talking with friends, but I sat a certain way in in a deck chair, and then the next morning I couldn't move that side of my hip. You know, it was like I hadn't thought I was sitting in a tense way. But
so you were fine while you were sitting there.
Right.
Yeah.
And just, so it seemed very random, and sometimes just, sometimes seemed related to the weather. If it was really like June weather, cloudy, thunderstormy stuff. So that kind of thing too, a little bit.
Well, how did the pain then affect your life?
I think I pretty much persevered. I mean, I went to work and hurt anyway, and, did everything I was supposed to do, but I think it was really hard on me in my head, because it was a lot, that in itself brought on stress and anxiety and a feeling of not having much control over what was going on. Mm-hmm. And probably a vicious circle in that way. Because then if I'd feel out of control, then I'd feel anxious, then I'd be stressed out.
Right.
Because I'm hurting, why am I hurting? I try and analyze it because that's kind of my nature. What did I do? I always kind of blame myself. I must have sat wrong. I must have, why do I have to be so stressed out kind of thing. Okay. Then you're really beating up on yourself for something that's kind of silly.
But did you try to hide how you felt from other people? And
I think most people were surprised if they found out I had something. I mean, my close friends I worked with knew. One in particular was very sensitive. She noticed if I'd sometimes be doing this, rubbing myself. Mm-hmm. She would comment, I could tell you were hurting today. But I don't think most people knew. Yeah.
Did the pain affect your ability to sleep?
I'd say probably that more than anything else over the years, because a lot of times I would be awake because my legs hurt. And I'd get kind of a restless leg thing that would cause me to not be able to go to sleep. Then I got up fairly early in the morning when I was working, so it was, didn't get a lot of sleep sometimes. So, yeah.
Well, how do you feel now?
I have felt so much better since I've been doing the exercises. And speaking of sleep, one of the things that's really changed dramatically is I have slept really well the last couple of months. When I do the different exercises, I still have things that come up, but I feel like I have a tool that I have more control, and it helps and it gets better, and it's something I can do rather than having to go somewhere else and have someone do something for me.
Good.
So it's really been amazing. I have had much less pain. Even though it was, even through the month of June, when I often do kind of have a time when I'm worse, my legs did not hurt that much, and my neck pain has gone away. I was having a lot of neck pain when I first came to see you, and shoulder pain, and that's really resolved.
And what about your ability, because you and Doug were doing this at home.
Yes.
And is that helpful?
That's been very helpful.
Doing reflex relaxation.
Right, doing that. It's been very helpful. He's he's done a really good job, I think, and it's been very helpful because at home, we can set up do something like in our bedroom or on the couch or wherever, and try and replicate, like, have a heating pad on my stomach. And I've tried doing lately, having my iPod with some music, which helps block out, some of the outside noise. And I think that's really helped.
What about reflexercise?
That, to me, has been the biggest help to me because that's the one that I can do for myself. And so I really have tried to do, I'd say now I probably do it about 5 times a day on a regular day. And then if it's a day when I feel like something's kind of coming on, or, something kind of feels off, or I have a little bit of a headache or something, I'll do it more. Like I'll try and go back to the 15 times that we started with. And it's usually within the next day, that's kind of resolved. So it seems to really be making
So what about then with, see, I lost my train of thought. Oh, you mentioned before that you felt out of control.
Yes. Yeah. More than I realized until recently, I think.
So now with the tools you do you have more of a sense of control?
Yes, definitely. Because it's like, well, so if I sit funny in a chair for some unknown reason, my body does its quirky thing that's been kind of like if it's like something happened to you and you had no reason for it, that bothered me a lot. Now I feel like, well, I'll do my reflexercise, I'll do my Ernie stuff, I'll try all the stuff, and then I can kind of get it nipped in the bud so it doesn't turn into this thing that kind of seems endless and doesn't go away.
So then, the 17 years or so of fibromyalgia, now you feel like you've got it under control.
Feels that way, yeah.
Now, how has your life changed now as a result of all this?
Well, I think I feel less anxious, for one thing, which is kind of something I am anyway. So I don't feel as anxious about things because it's not like, I think I was always really kind of hypervigilant about what I might do or not do that might start something up, and then kind of a fear of, well, if that happens, then I'll be messed up for months, and I'll hurt, and I don't want that to happen. So it's kind of given me a more secure feeling of that, or even being a little braver about trying certain things, which I'm not a very, very athletic person, but like I recently thought about going on a roller coaster.
Wow.
I didn't do it.
Okay.
But in the past, I would have said, there's no way I would even think, because I might mess up my neck, and then why would I do that? So it kind of put a damper on certain things, I think, and that I might have tried or not tried. Yeah. But definitely feel less anxious, which to me is a huge thing.
Fantastic. Anything else you can think of right now?
Nothing other than the fact that sort of kind of a personal mantra that's kind of come up my head through some of this was like certain things that you and I talked about that maybe triggered some of the tension in my body that I thought from years ago maybe. I've kind of, I think at one point said to you something like, I realized, well, it just doesn't matter. And that's kind of become like a little mantra in my head. There's a lot of things that they just don't matter.
That's true. Yeah.
And I just sort of think, well, that just doesn't really matter. And it seems to help a lot. So that kind of is an offshoot of some of
Well, that's fantastic, because then way, if it doesn't matter, you don't have the physical response, which is the tension, and that causes all the pain.
Right. So it's out of that vicious circle that where I would worry about, am I going to hurt or am I? Now it's kind of like that's opened up. So it's like I don't have that as much, so a lot of those things kind of don't matter as much.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Good. Well,
And I appreciate it very much, your help.